You mentioned that each senior is choosing from between 100 and 200 plans, but that there are something like 24,000 plans across the US. What's the reason for that discrepancy in the numbers? And also, why are there 24,000 plans?
Great questions on both.
Welcome to the Emergent Podcast, where we interview product and startup leaders from emerging technology companies about their work in the trenches to bring the hardest and most impactful technologies to life. Today's guest is Cobi Blumenfeld-Gantz. Cobi is the founder and CEO of Chapter, a leading tech company transforming how seniors navigate Medicare and retirement more broadly through data-driven plan selection and AI-enabled advisory services. He started Chapter after seeing his own parents receive poor advice from a local broker. Prior to Chapter, Cobi was on the U.S. government team at Palantir, where he oversaw projects with multiple federal agencies. He's testified before Congress, successfully advocating for regulations that protect seniors from unscrupulous actors. In this episode, we explore the perverse incentive structures of the Medicare industry and how the status quo often leaves seniors choosing between hundreds of plans with little more than biased advice from commission-driven brokers. We discuss the massive data challenge of Medicare Advantage, where over 24,000 plan permutations exist, and how Chapter uses Palantir-grade AI technology to model everything from specific hearing aid benefits to real-time prescription pricing. Cobi explains his deliberate decision to build an unbiased brokerage that recommends the best plan for the user, even when it earns the company zero revenue, and how this high-trust approach unlocked massive partnerships with health systems that have historically shunned the industry. We dive into the nuances of building tech for the 65-plus demographic, debunking myths about senior phone usage while highlighting why information hierarchy and trust building differ wildly from standard Silicon Valley design principles. Cobi shares his hustle-first approach to navigating Washington, D.C. He recounts how he earned the right to testify before Congress without the help of lobbyists to protect seniors from unscrupulous actors. We also examine Chapter's lean staffing philosophy and how they've remained so small relative to their revenue and funding levels, including why they hire full-time advisors over seasonal contractors to maintain quality. Finally, we look toward Chapter's future as a broader retirement platform, moving beyond insurance into a much broader layer designed to help seniors navigate the money out phase of their lives. And now, a word from our sponsor. This episode is brought to you by Product Board, the intelligent product management platform. For over 10 years, Product Board has helped leading organizations like Zoom, Salesforce, and Autodesk build the right products faster. Its end-to-end platform is purpose-built for helping product teams uncover customer needs, define their strategy, and align everyone around the roadmap. And now, it's equipping product organizations to excel in the AI era with Product Board Spark, its new specialized agent for product management. Explore new product ideas or generate a product brief in seconds with AI that already understands your product and your business. See how Product Board can help your product teams ship faster and deliver high-impact products. Head to productboard.com/Judelson, Judelson. Cobi, I'm pumped to have you on the show. Welcome.
Excited to be here. Thanks, Adam.
Awesome. So let's set the stage. Can you briefly orient everybody to what Medicare actually is, some of the key stats about who's on it, and maybe the different plan styles? I know that comes up a lot, A, B, C, D, all that. Can you give us that background a little bit to kick us off?
At a high level, Medicare is health insurance for seniors. So when you turn 65 or retire in this country, pretty much everyone has to deal with Medicare in some way. There are about 70 million Americans who rely on this program, predominantly those who are over 65 or retired. There are a lot of different types of Medicare, and it's a really complicated set of programs that have been developed over the past really 40, 50 years. So there's original Medicare, which is what most people think of when they think of Medicare. It covers up to 80% of medical expenses. Because 20% of medical expenses can be a lot when your expenses, these hospital bills can be tens of thousands of dollars, and 20% of that is a lot. Generally, people buy a supplemental plan of some type. So the two big categories of supplemental plans are Medicare Advantage, which is what you'll see in the news a lot and hear celebrities propagating all over the media. So that's one type. And then the other type is Medicare Supplement. Both of these plans functionally fill that 20% gap, but operate very differently. A Medicare Supplement plan is a very simple insurance product. You pay a premium every month and you have kind of everything covered. A Medicare Advantage plan is a very complicated insurance product that operates much more similarly to the way your employer plan works, in that there are doctor networks, there are benefits, there are copays, there are deductibles, and there's just long tail of benefits that you have to navigate.
Got it. And so for our audience, most of whom are not seniors, but maybe have senior parents or maybe are approaching being seniors, can you walk us through what actually happens when someone turns 65 and has to figure out Medicare? I'll give a quick vignette from my preparation for our meeting today. I just Googled enrolling in Medicare. And the first thing I noticed was there are sponsored ads that come up above any of the government sites. The second thing I noticed was there is a Medicare.gov site. There's also Medicare mentioned on the Social Security Administration website. Then when I actually opened the site, it's gobbledygook reading it. And one of the first things it says is, you might be eligible, you might have to enroll, you might not have to enroll, we might automatically enroll you. Anyway, tell us what really happens, or what's supposed to happen.
That's what happens. That's a very good summary of how bad it is today. It's really hard. The first question people need to answer is, do I even need to be on Medicare? Because you don't have to go on Medicare. If you're still working, if you're 67 years old and you still work for a larger company, you don't have to go on Medicare. Often you should, but that doesn't mean you have to. Some parts of Medicare, the government can automatically enroll you in, predominantly Part A. But Part B, which is a different part of Medicare, you have to proactively sign up for in most cases. So yeah, it's complicated. You can sign up through the government. You can sign up through a private company like Chapter, like a Medicare brokerage or Medicare navigation platform like Chapter. But most people rely on some kind of expert guidance for good reason. There's no single place where you can find all Medicare options. And so you're incentivized to go to someone who actually knows what they're talking about to give you that guidance. Obviously, ideally, we wouldn't have to exist. At least we wouldn't have to build this product if we wanted to exist, because it would just be simple, sort of like taxes. Like you wish TurboTax and every tax accountant in the country didn't have to exist, because taxes should just work. But Medicare is the same in that it should just work and it should be obvious and easy, but it's not.
Yeah. And at a high level, we'll get into the specifics more, but what do you guys build for the senior?
We build a lot of software, and that is, let me sort of go through the full value chain of what it takes to enroll someone in a plan, because it's actually extremely complicated. The first thing is, how do you know what even is a Medicare plan conceptually? It is health underwriting and it is benefits functionally. But to know every benefit of a Medicare plan is actually very hard. Does your hearing aid benefit cover $500 per ear or $500 in total per year? Different carriers share that data in different formats. And so those are dramatically different amounts of dollars that you're getting in benefit there. And sometimes they frame it as $500 in total every other year. So you actually do have to create a data model that integrates data from every plan across every carrier to even know what's in a plan.
Is it fair to say that a healthcare plan is basically a giant contract of promises? And like each of these things, like you were talking about, the hearing aids, it could be written completely differently across different plans. And that's the starting condition of the problem. Okay, go ahead, continue then. Cool.
That's a great summary. When you are a senior navigating this, when you and I enroll in our health insurance through our employer, we usually have 3 or 4 options. And we often have, hopefully, an HR department to help us navigate that process. When a senior chooses Medicare, there are usually 100 to 200 options to choose from and no HR department. So that's the amount of complexity that exists. And then there's the step before that of, again, should I even be on Medicare or not? So that's the amount of complexity. There are roughly 25,000 different Medicare permutations for across the country. It's kind of impossible for any one person to understand that. So we have to go through every element to match each person to the right plan. So another big element is what doctors are covered, or what's called a provider network. This is a notorious problem in healthcare, knowing what doctors are in network with which carrier. We've had to build a lot of tech, both data integrations, ML models, and some pretty interesting ad hoc AI attendant automations to get that accuracy very high. we have now built the best provider directory in the country, at least for Medicare, by far. There are companies that have been built just to do this, to solve this one problem. And this is, for us, an input into this broader problem. Another category of problems we have to solve on the data side is prescriptions. We are the only company in the country that can tell you with certainty what will your prescription cost at a given pharmacy on a given Medicare plan. Shouldn't be that hard, but it is.
Yeah. I'm imagining there's sort of like, so there's all these contracts for all these possible plans with maybe hundreds, maybe of thousands of different things that they cover, don't cover at different levels. Then there's the doctors they interface with or don't interface with, and maybe even some doctors they interface with maybe on certain procedures, but not others. Yep. I don't know if that's true. And then after you finish with the doctor, all the different drugs that may or may not be prescribed. And so kind of like weaving your own personal narrative through that messy data set across those different dimensions. That's what you guys do effectively?
Yes.
Yeah.
Exactly.
Got it. Okay.
And then,
this is sort of
and then we automate.
Yeah, go ahead.
Yeah. And then we automate the rest of the tedium of the process, where all the forms you have to fill out, all the stuff, all the compliance stuff you have to do. And we automate all of that as well.
Yeah. Now I'm understanding. I saw the term Palantir grade data weaponry for seniors and for Medicare challenges. Is that something you guys coined? Do you agree with that statement?
Where did you see that? I've never heard that.
It was somewhere in the research. I forget exactly.
I think I like it. I don't know. I've never heard it. It's yeah. That works.
Cool. Okay. So now that we understand approximately how you guys are helping to solve this problem for seniors and helping them navigate the complexity of finding the right plan and being on the right plan and all that, can you explain what the status quo is in terms of who gets paid to help seniors find plans now?
So the incentives in this market are so perverse. The way it works for pretty much every single Medicare advisor or Medicare brokerage in the country, with the exception of Chapter, and I'm not embellishing, we are the only organization that does this, that does it differently. Every other company will contract with a subset of insurance carriers. They will explain the plans that those insurance carriers offer to the senior. And often they will strongly incentivize their Medicare brokers or their Medicare advisors to sell a certain set of plans that pay the company more. So basically, these are insurance brokers who are pushing plans that pay the insurance brokerage more. That's how the entire industry works. In fact, there are DOJ investigations now into the three of the largest Medicare brokerages for this exact incentive structure issue. But it's good that the DOJ is shining the light on this. But the problem is, like, because they're only looking at these three companies, people think those are the only bad actors. This is how the entire industry works. Every single company operates this way, except Chapter. And so it's insane. So
your parents call in thinking they're getting advice. The person on the other end of the phone is thoughtful and understands plans, but only understands or will talk to you about the plans that are going to get them the highest premiums and their business the highest premiums.
Exactly. So there's really two sides to it. There are a lot of people who are not malicious, who are actually just, they don't understand that this scope of plans exists because they don't have the data or the technology expertise to go understand all that information and present it in a sensible way to consumers. So one version of it is people are very well-intentioned, very thoughtful, trying to do the right thing. They just can't. Another version of it is, and particularly it's on the company level more than the person level, but a lot of these companies, especially the big, massive call center brokerages, are malicious. They are hiding plans from people. They are incentivizing their agents to sell plans that pay them more. Yes.
Yeah. And you don't have to have an agreement with the plan to sell the plan, or you do have to have, like, do those companies, those bigger companies, they had to build these agreements. So yes. How do you guys sell plans that you don't have agreements with, or did you have to first get all 24,000 agreements?
We don't have all carrier agreements. What we do is we totally silo the financial system, and all of our data, our plan recommendations, and our consumer-facing software is independent of economics from us. So whether or not we get paid, we don't care. We could get paid $0 on a plan. We could get paid a lot more on a plan. It doesn't matter. Our advisors don't know how much we get paid, if we get paid, and our advisors are incentivized equally, whether we get paid or not. And so in that way, we enroll people in plans on which we get no money every day. It's just sort of cost.
Oh, I see.
Of doing
So
business.
you'll enroll them in a plan.
We eat that
so
cost.
you can enroll them, but there's no incentive referral fee from the actual.
We don't make any money on it. Yep.
Okay. Yeah, it's sort of like an arm's length referral, but you still help them through the process. And to the customer, there's no difference. It's just a matter of like whether you guys get paid or don't get paid.
And we still consider them part of the chapter membership. We still help them when they call in. We still help them throughout the year. And it actually is just, frankly, it's actually self-interested in the long run, because these are people who have a great experience and they refer their friends, and their friends may need a plan on which we do get paid, or they may need a plan on which we do get paid in a year or two when plans change and when their health needs change. So we just view it as a very long-term orientation and long-term relationship with our membership base.
That's awesome. Help me understand. You mentioned that each senior is choosing from between 100 and 200 plans, but that there are something like 24,000 plans across the US. What's the reason for that discrepancy in the numbers? And also, why are there 24,000 plans?
Great questions on both. Plans are created at the zip code level on the Medicare Advantage side. So a plan that's in zip code A is going to be different from a plan that's 2 miles away offered in zip code B. And it's based on where you live.
That's because of the law, or that's because of the providers? Like what's the incentive structure to subdivide it like that?
I actually don't know if Medicare Advantage plans are required to subdivide it. I mean, no, they can't be, because they could just offer the same plan in different zip codes if they were required to. Yeah. They do it for a bunch of reasons. One is a competitive dynamic of they're all doing game theory with each other of what benefits do I need to offer to win business in a given market? And a market in this case is usually a zip code. Sometimes it's a state, but usually it's a zip code. There's a lot of it is driven by health systems and provider organizations in that zip code, because people generally don't want to drive too far when they want to go see the doctor physically, as well as different hospitals that are in each area.
Yeah, fascinating. And the 24,000, that's just the free market coming up with 24,000 ways to serve the consumer and make money from it, right? Yeah.
Yes. Yeah. That's not regulated.
Yeah. Fascinating. So, your users are very different than most of the users that most of us cater to in the Silicon Valley or the sort of coastal locations where most companies are founded. And there's a stereotype that building tech for seniors is just making the font bigger. That's obviously rude. It's untrue. Tell us what else is involved and what you would tell other founders or product builders looking to attack challenges where the users are maybe a little bit less familiar with the tech, a little bit less tech savvy, maybe don't have a phone on them 24/7 like, folks in their 20s or 30s or 40s do.
There's a lot of misconceptions about how seniors engage with technology. The first is actually that they don't use phones. They do. They use phones more than we do. Seniors are on their phones more than people in their 30s and 40s, which is surprising. Now, they interact with their technology in a different way. You and I are probably very comfortable transacting on our phone. Seniors are less comfortable transacting on their phone, but are much more comfortable communicating. So they'll be in text, email, phone, and browsing all day. They're probably not shopping as much as
using the phone as a phone versus using the phone as a computer. Yeah,
exactly. And so that implicates how we engage with our members. Oftentimes, it's more text or phone based than it is web app based, for example. Certainly, fonts. People have to be able to read what we're putting on the page. But a lot of it is taking a step back. It's really about how do we create trust, and how do you create trust isn't just a function of the software. It's a function of how do people hear about you, the messaging, the brand. Once they are looking at you, what language do you use? So a lot of it is different language. We have to be a little bit less pithy, I think, or a little bit less cute in a lot of our language, because we do want to make sure people trust us with a really consequential decision. Also, information hierarchy is pretty different. Like when you're designing an app of any type, often you'll put a lot of menus hidden in a top left or top right hamburger menu, and a lot of these like core design principles that we take for granted and we're just used to. Seniors have a really hard time with. So generally, you actually want to put more, this is very tactical, but like you want to put more information up front rather than hiding it behind information hierarchical structures. You want to actually having more text on a page is fine. Seniors tend to read further down on a page than you and I will. They have a long, I guess one version of it is they have longer attention span than you and I do on a page. So they'll read further down. And so you can write more. But really this is all in service of making sure that people trust you. And I think earning seniors' trust is very hard. So that's where we've invested a lot into how do we engage with them. A lot of it is on the phone. And how do we make those phone calls both very good, but also very efficient for us as a business, as well as how do we make sure that they're hearing about us from trusted people so that we aren't starting from zero of like, what is this chapter company I've never heard of, but they're hearing about us from someone they trust, whether it's a friend or a doctor or a financial advisor or whomever.
This episode is brought to you by Propel Auth. Startups and corporate innovation teams routinely waste months building core user authentication and authorization flows into their products. Propel Auth has automated all the most important pieces of the user management lifecycle. Instantly set up wait lists, magic links, social login, user impersonation, user management, role-based access control, SAML integrations for enterprise, team management, and much more. With Propel Auth, each of these challenges takes just a few lines of code instead of months of development and integration time. And with thoughtful control over design and skinning, it's easy to keep your product fully on brand. Get a generous free starter pack that scales through 1,000 monthly active users, or mention Emergent25 to receive 25% off for the first 6 months for more mature products. Get back to building your actual product and let Propel Auth handle your user management needs. Visit Propel Auth, that's PROPELAUTH.com to learn more. What's your take on voice agents for this demographic? Is it an automatic way to lose trust? Is it an amazing way to build loyalty and get answers faster? What are you experiencing?
Over time, I'm very excited about voice AI because I think voice AI is more valuable for seniors than it is for any other demographic or subset of use cases in the country, because phone as a form factor is so heavily relied upon. And so if we can make that efficient and high quality and consistent, then that's fantastic. Voice AI isn't quite there yet. I think if you want to book a reservation at a restaurant, you kind of have two parameters, like how big is your party and what time do you want to go? That's pretty easy for voice AI today. And you also don't really care if they aren't the most polite because you're just booking a reservation. Like you just don't care. It's not that high consequence. You don't really care. And you're already going in with the intent of, I want to eat there. Whereas when you're calling in for Medicare guidance, often you don't know what you want or what you need, and you don't really know what's going on. So it's a multi-thousand parameter problem. It's not a 2-parameter problem. So what we found is we can be very effective using voice AI, and we are, when we kind of subset these into what we know you want. So if we know that you're calling in because you want to understand your hearing benefit, just going along that same thread as before, we can build a voice agent that's very good at that. If we know you want to find a doctor who's in network with your plan, we can build a voice agent that's very good at that. But if you're just calling in for, hey, I need Medicare help, voice agents are not there yet. But we're investing a lot there. There's a lot of value that I think we can create, not just in Medicare, but as we think about building the retirement platform of the future for all seniors, I think there's a lot of value in voice AI.
Nice. Well, we'll be following closely. It's something we're starting to experiment with at Common Sense too, because as I'm sure you can imagine, one of the primary sets of people that call local government with questions are also seniors. And so, yeah, we'll be watching your journey and figuring out what's the right way to deploy the right product there.
Yeah, we should keep talking on that.
Yeah, I love it. One of the most fascinating things to me about your journey is that, the vast majority of the Palantir mafia have gone on to build other enterprise companies, selling, 7-8-figure deals to other enterprises, oil and gas, health tech, et cetera, even other government entities. Chapter from the outside looks a little bit more like a consumer company, and you've spent years learning that enterprise playbook. Is this true? And what did you have to unlearn to acquire so many individual customers versus, 100 big deals that kind of set the company up on its glide path?
We're a very weird company for a lot of reasons, one of which is that we have this weird B2B2C model, which most big companies, successful companies don't use. Like there are very few companies that I can think of that have been successful using this model. So it's definitely a little weird. When we started the company, we did start trying with typical consumer channels, Facebook, Google, ads on different platforms. And it's a really good way to get really early signal and get people to use the product. But it's low trust. People don't know who you are when you're on Facebook if you don't have a brand already. And it's very expensive. Just the way that Facebook and Google make a lot of money is they create these auctions, and then as it gets more competitive, they raise your prices over time. So it's very hard to scale those particularly efficiently from a financial perspective, even though they do scale very well. What we realized pretty early was that I and the early team don't know anything about consumer marketing. So we were like very much figuring this out and trying to understand how this stuff works. And B, we got really lucky with a couple of our early enterprise partners who wanted to help their patients and their clients with Medicare guidance. It was like very, very lucky and fortunate. It started to work pretty well. And then we started to lean into it and say, can we just go through these enterprise partners and basically create a B2B motion where we sign these deals, which are very large, implied dollar amount deals, but the organization isn't paying us. We're getting paid as a brokerage by serving the clients, the patients, the audience of these enterprise partners. And that was really weird to learn and like hard to figure out because the contract structures are very different. The value prop is very different because we're not selling something that the chief medical officer of a health system directly uses. We're selling something that their patients use. And so, yeah, it's a very weird model, and it did take a long time to figure out how to sell that, how to build the right product around it. It was a very different model than Palantir.
And so the contracts themselves are big in the sense that you work with a hospital system with, I don't know how many people a hospital system supports, call it 50,000 or 100,000 or 500,000 people. And if they start referring you to those people, then you guys get paid, or do you actually negotiate like locked in fees up front for the partnership?
No, the former, exactly as you said. So most of our partners, interestingly, we don't pay. They do it because they think it's important to their patients or to their organization for their patients to get good guidance. It's actually illegal to pay health systems, which for anti-kickback reasons. So we don't have to pay anything to a lot of our partner archetypes. But when we do pay, not to health systems, but to others, it's usually a performance-based contract where we're paying basically a referral fee to them, and then we get paid on the brokerage side. So it's really just if we can sign up 1,000 people from a particular organization, that's $500,000 a year in revenue, which is great.
Yeah. There's a lot of anxiety, I think, for people that have come from the enterprise side, imagining selling through a partner. And a lot of it, I think, comes down to like when this partner is on the phone with my future client, are they going to mention us? Do they really understand our product? Can we really trust somebody else to talk about us? How did you guys nail that?
We don't have our partners sell for us. We have our partners refer people to us. So it's a little different. So it's not like we, in the Palantir context, we're not asking Accenture to go sell Palantir as software to the government and make sure they're describing Palantir's features correctly and selling Palantir well. We all know that that doesn't work at Palantir, or hasn't in the past. Maybe it does today. I don't know. And like, there's good reasons why that doesn't work. What we're doing is we're going to a health system and saying, your patients have a lot of Medicare questions. You don't want to deal with them. Tell your patients when they have questions to talk to Chapter. But similar, I think the inverse principle applies in that why would a health system trust us to talk to their patients and make sure that we are doing right by their patients? And that is the core of the challenge that we have to overcome and that we've had to figure out. And one of the reasons why these channels are so great for us and so defensible is because we're the only organization in Medicare that's A, unbiased, and B, provides a great product experience. And so these organizations only work with us, especially the ones that don't get paid. They have no financial incentive really to do so. They only work with us and refer us to their patients and their clients because we provide an amazing experience. And it takes a lot of work off of them. If we didn't do that, then they wouldn't work with us. And in the past, most of them have never worked with any Medicare partner because most Medicare partners kind of suck. So we've been able to basically use the value of the core product experience to unlock these go-to-market channels that have never really been used in Medicare.
Basically comes down to trust. Basically comes down to expertise, high trust, high expertise. People will come to you, then they'll trust you. Yeah, that's interesting. Cool. One of the things that you mentioned that you're proud of is that you have a relatively small team given the size and magnitude of your revenue and the scale of your company. Can you talk a little bit about the judgment that you've used to decide when you had enough people? I mean, founders that are doing well have incredible pressure to just hire, go faster, faster, faster. How'd you decide to kind of slow down at the size that you're at? What diagnostic moments did you notice? Anything you can share on that?
Yeah, I have a lot of thoughts on this. I think most people think about this entirely upside down in the entirely wrong way. There are businesses that are exceptions, certainly, but broadly, there's an assumption that hiring more people makes you go faster. And that is, in almost every case, incorrect. Hiring more people usually makes you go slower. It's just fact, like it's empirical. So that's one. Two is, I think even the idea of like having hiring targets or having open roles, frankly, we don't have open roles, is just upside down. If you want to build an amazing team and an amazing culture, which I think Palantir did a great job of, especially early on, I think we've done a decent job of, you need to find amazing people. And so our orientation is, if I find 5 amazing people this year, I will hire 5 people. If I find 0 amazing people this year, I will hire 0 people. If I find 50 amazing people, if I can afford it, which we can, unfortunately, but like, take 500, we'll hire 500. The reality is there aren't 500 amazing people available for a given role in New York at a given time. There's probably 5. And so almost by definition, if you're hiring more than 20, 30, 50 people for sure a year, especially for product and data, these types of roles, you're by definition not hiring exceptional people. And so our view and my view is, let's go find amazing people. Let's create roles around them. And that will make us go way faster than saying, oh, I need an engineer.
I love this, but my question is, like, what happens when everything around you is crumbling because there's no one to keep the lights on? Like, how do you deal with that piece of it?
I mean, it's hard. And that's where it goes to ruthless prioritization. Like, you have to prioritize the problems and the parts of your product that are most important. And maybe like on the sales side, we only have roughly 40 people in our entire HQ of our company. So we have all of our Medicare advisors, and then we have HQ, which is product, eng, growth, finance, HR, whatever. About 40 people in HQ. Part of the way we do that is we prioritize. Instead of saying we're going to go after 10 different channel types on our growth team, we say we have 3 channels that work. We're going to keep focused on them because we know they can grow 1,000x more within these channels. And yeah, there's a long tail of, within each channel, there are probably 5,000 partner organizations we want to go after. But the top 100 are going to drive the majority of the revenue. It's like the 80-20 rule. So let's just go focus on the top 100. Yeah, in 2 or 3 years, maybe we need to go to the long tail. But today, we're just going to stay really maniacally focused on the strategy that we know works. And if that means we're not capturing that extra $1 of revenue from the long tail, that's okay, because we're actually capturing the $100 of revenue from the bigger partners. So that's like one version of it. You need to be able to ruthlessly prioritize. And then there are ad hoc things you can do. Like if you need to hire a contractor to go do something for 2 weeks until you build it, that's fine. But the point is, you don't want to bloat your whole company and change the culture because of a short-term fire you have.
Yeah. Do you find it easy to maintain that compass and easy to make those trade-off decisions? Are they very clear to you? Or do you wrestle with them? Because I think a lot of founders do wrestle with this, and I'd be curious, how do you zen yourself to the correct answer, if that makes sense?
It's hard. It's gotten easier over time, but it's very hard. The first 3 years, frankly, I was very bad at this. My self-assessment. I've gotten, I think, pretty good at it, but it took a while. Part of it is every context is different. It took a while for me to understand what chapter actually needed. And part of it is just, as you get reps doing this type of thing, some of these patterns become more clear. But yeah, it's very hard. And often it feels like everything is breaking and the world is on fire. And if I don't do these 10 things, we're all going to fail. But after enough of those reps, you realize that the bar for what is existential for the company goes up pretty quickly, which is actually a really, I remember 2 or 3 years ago, I had a reflection where so there was a particular thing that happened, and I remember thinking to myself, if this were 1 year ago, I would have been freaking out. I would have thought this is existential for the business. And now the same thing happens, and I'm like, it'll be fine.
Yeah.
Like, just the amount, part of it is the business has matured and can absorb some of those issues much better. But part of it is just my perspective has increased.
Yeah, I think for anyone who's not been in the CEO role, it's easy to not recognize that only the most ridiculous problems end up on the CEO's desk. And so like your volume, it just goes way down. You're like, yeah, okay, this person quit. That's really unfortunate, but like, we'll find another person, right? Yeah. And it doesn't mean you didn't care. It doesn't mean you didn't love that person. It doesn't mean you're disappointed, but you do have to build up some armor, I think, to be able to get through these hard moments. Speaking of hard moments, you have had a rare founder experience of testifying before Congress, and in a way that catalyzed real action, including a 54-page report that made some major changes about how prior authorizations are handled, improving the conditions around algorithmic denials, and a lot more. Can you share how you made this happen? And obviously be a boon for most companies to be able to testify, under positive terms. How'd you make that happen? How'd you think about the approach?
Yeah, I would not claim to have been solely responsible for any of those things that you mentioned, but I appreciate it.
But you certainly helped catalyze that. You certainly added to the momentum, right?
Hopefully.
Yeah.
I'm pretty close with some of the early enroll team because we worked with them at Palantir. And I remember them telling me early on, I was talking to them a few years ago about what's their strategy been with government, with media. And some of them glibly responded, whatever Palantir would do, we'll do the opposite. Like, that's our mental model. Like, do the opposite of what Palantir used to do. Because Palantir was probably really bad at this for a long time. It was like, eschew the government.
Very quiet. We didn't say anything about
don't respond to the media.
For a very long time.
Don't engage with the government. And their strategy was the opposite, which has worked extremely well for them. And so I thought that was right, at least for us. So pretty early on, we had been spending time with the relevant congressional committees that talk about Medicare. It's primarily the Senate Finance Committee is the most important one. There are a couple others on the House side too. And we've just been a couple times a year, we either meet them in person or we call them up and we say, hey, here are the things going on in the Medicare world that you should know about. And they roughly every year or two, they do this bigger report or investigation on things going on in Medicare. And a couple of years before they invited me to testify, we had given them good questions to ask other people for that testimony. And we're the only people who are willing to give them like actual stuff that was going on and say, hey, here's what's really bad in the market right now. You should go look into this. You should actually like take this seriously. And I think we earned a lot of credibility with them by being willing to say, we actually think brokers are not well regulated. We invite more regulation in the brokerage industry. We think this is what needs to change. No other brokerage is willing to say that for obvious reasons. And so we earned a lot of credibility there. And then when they were getting ready for their next hearing, they talked to us and invited us to be on the shortlist to participate, asked if we wanted to. I said yes. We had to interview with both majority and minority staffers to get approved. And then fortunately, former Secretary of Health, Donna Shalala, is on our board and was very helpful as well in like getting us over that final hurdle of the credibility to say, yes, we are actually good for Americans. We do what we say we do. And that I think, I don't know if we wouldn't have gotten it without her, but it was very helpful to have her involved there. And then I testified, and that was it.
That's awesome. This episode is brought to you by Flykit, Flykitt, the first full solution to jet lag. This might seem hard to believe, but I've flown from Los Angeles to Tokyo and back with virtually no jet lag using Flykit. Based on research with Navy SEALs and fighter pilots, the Flykit team discovered that long flights cause inflammation in addition to disrupting your circadian rhythm, and they figured out how to solve both these challenges using a customized program for when to eat, sleep, and use their patented supplements and blue light blocking glasses. It's simple to follow, and you don't have to change anything before your travel day. With Flykit, more than 90% of people can sleep well in Europe, Asia, or anywhere else in the world on night one. Visit flykit.com and use coupon code FLYWithEmergent to get 15% off Flykit. You know, a lot of companies get approached by these extremely expensive, extremely high retainer firms for whether it's lobbying or PR or whatever it is that they want to call it. And it's often at a time for companies when it feels like an awful lot of money. Did you have to go that route, or were you able to navigate the connections through your board and through your existing relationships?
We did not use any lobbyists or any PR firms. I'm very generally, there are exceptions, again, always exceptions, but I'm generally very against external consultants for things like that. I think it is helpful to pay for access. Like if you want to get an intro to someone, that's fine. But usually those intros are not high trust. So you actually have to be careful. It can hurt more than it can help sometimes. And you kind of just have to hustle your way into a lot of these connections and a lot of these conversations. I talk about this. I talk about this with founders all the time, and there are all these founder listservs with different VC portfolio companies. And oftentimes people are asking, who's the best PR firm to use? Who's the best lobbyist firm to use? And I'm just a broken record at this point, because there are all these people proposing like, oh, this firm's good, this firm's good. I'm just like, you guys are all wrong. Do it yourself. Like, you have to do these things yourself. In fact, this is another thing that Enroll got right. Yes, they used Lulu, who's probably the best person at PR in the world. But her whole guidance is do it yourself. It's like, yes, I'll help you craft it. But like, you guys actually have to do the work. And I think she's 100% spot on. She has I think her whole branding is like, her hat says like, go direct. It's like, do it yourself. And I think that's absolutely correct.
That's great advice. That's really interesting. Let's talk about service and product hybrid companies. I think especially as it becomes cheaper to build marginal next units of software with AI, a lot of the moat in the future is either software plus hardware, software plus process, software plus service. You guys are obviously a shining example of this. I think sounds like that's how you might describe yourself in terms of the advisors plus the technology HQ. Is that correct? And if it is correct, how have you avoided going too deep on, say, just the services?
That is how we think about it. We think about it as the human relationship is very important, and we don't view that as a problem. We view that as an asset. Similar, frankly, to how Palantir thinks, or at least used to think about FDEs. Like broadly the market, investors would really criticize, especially not Palantir investors, but just VCs or public market investors in general would heavily criticize Palantir for being too services heavy. But what we saw at Palantir was, when Baseline was rolled out, Baseline is basically the centralized team that manages all deployment infrastructure and all deployments. We went from needing 10 or 15 FDEs to manage a single Palantir deployment to 20 FDEs to manage essentially all of them. So it's like a 10,000x margin improvement. It takes time to do that. It took 2 or 3 years or more to create that shift. But I think people really underestimate that you can get incrementally better and better at efficiency, at margin, at process, using tech to make humans more effective and efficient. So we think about it as, when we started the company, we had basically no tech. It was like, let's do this. Let's understand how it works. Let's use humans. And then we've just built the right tech to automate more and more of the process and make the product experience better and better. It's not actually rocket science if you do it that way. We can get roughly 50% plus more efficient every year on our human sort of metrics. And when you compound that over 2 or 3 years, it's exceedingly efficient. And in fact, it's probably more efficient than having a team of 20 engineers building something, because those team of 20 engineers are going to build something that's probably going to cost more than the 3 humans you need to do it.
Yeah, it's a brilliant way of describing certainly one very strong product strategy, which is something to the effect of, okay, we hire advisors. We have those advisors help people with this process, and we see which parts of this process take an exceedingly long amount of time or are really error prone and really difficult. So we build technology around those, and little by little, well, actually pretty quickly, you advance to a serious offering in the space. Yeah, that's really interesting. So the advisors at some level are kind of central to the whole thing, yeah? Absolutely,
yeah. And we view that as a good thing. Again, we hire only the best advisors in the country. We have less than 1% acceptance rate. We are now, it was hard to build this, but now we're known as the best place to be a Medicare advisor in the country. We've built a really good brand around being an employer for Medicare advisors. We provide tech company culture, which no one else provides. We provide equity to our Medicare advisors, like any other employee. We provide great technology, far better than what they have elsewhere. So we think the advisors are a really important part of it.
Did you guys, or do you guys engage in seasonal hiring as you have open enrollment? Okay, cool.
We don't, very deliberately. All of our advisors are full-time employees. We don't use contractors for this. And that's because we care so much about the experience and the quality of the experience. If you hire seasonal employees, generally it's just really hard to train. They aren't as familiar with your process. They don't know your tech. And like any non-full-time employee or seasonal employee, they don't have to deal with the consequences of making mistakes 6 months later.
Yeah.
And that's really the cultural thing that I think it comes down to. People who are here have to deal with decisions they make in a year. In fact, as a quick aside, I've had this idea. It's probably not the most PC thing to share, but I'm going to share it around. We actually want, post-termination exercise periods. Like once someone leaves a company, whether they're fired or they leave, companies can decide how long someone has to exercise their options. My view is we actually want to create a debt metric, which is if you, as an engineer, for example, if you built a system that, at a startup, systems need to be rebuilt every 6 months, every year, every 2 years, that's fine. But if you built a system that actually had serious downstream consequences that no one realized until a year later when you leave and someone else has to deal with it, you should actually go in debt on your options and actually have to pay some of your options back in some post window. I'm obviously like being facetious. We would never do that in fact, but I do think there is a really misaligned incentive of people to focus on the short term without thinking about the long term.
Yeah. And I guess the converse is also true, right? Like a 100x engineer who's only there for a year and leaves for some important personal reason may have an impact 5 years down the line still.
Absolutely. And they should be rewarded for that. Yeah.
Yeah. I love that. That's fascinating. Did you guys end up adopting the forward deployed engineering model? No. And why did you feel like you didn't need it? Or that
it's not really relevant in our context. Like we don't embed in any way with our, that's not quite true. In most cases, we don't embed with our enterprise partners. We are not building software for enterprise partners. Predominantly, we have a little bit of software for them, but usually it's for the consumer or for our Medicare advisors. So the idea of embedding with them, we embed with them often from a strategic perspective, but we don't need engineers on site building with them, if that makes sense.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I guess in a way, the people that you are embedding with are your own advisors.
Yes.
Right. And it's not embedding because you're all just there.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah. That's our company. Yeah.
Yeah. That's just the company. Yeah. Cool. It might be easy to assume that once you help a senior choose a plan, the customer engagement is over. But you guys have gone far beyond that experience, both inside of Medicare and even beyond Medicare. Can you share a bit more about some of the other offerings that you have now or that are to come as well?
We care a lot about making sure that seniors not only have the best Medicare plan today, but forever. And people's health needs change all the time. Medicare plans themselves change all the time. So we engage with people throughout the year to help them navigate this process. And it's not just, hey, I need a new Medicare plan. Often it's, I got a referral for a specialist. I don't know which one's in network with my plan. Help me. Or I got this bill. I don't understand it. Is this right? Or I need to get a hearing aid. Does my plan cover it or not? So we help people with all these types of questions about how do they navigate the ecosystem and make sure they save a lot of money. That is the majority of our product offering today. We also have some other B2B offerings for some of our partners who need either Medicare benefit data or things like that we've just structured. The thing we're really excited about building is really going back to the initial vision of the company, which has always been to help people live the best chapter of their lives. That's why the company's called Chapter. And that's not just a Medicare problem, that's a retirement problem. So we are thinking about how do we help people have the health, the wealth, and the purpose in this phase of life. We certainly touch health today, we certainly touch wealth today. And so we're thinking about making sure that people can afford to live the way that they want to live in this chapter of their lives. So we're going to be rolling out a much heavier financial platform over the next few months that I'm very excited about.
To help with the financial planning side. Yeah, that's interesting. Because I imagine, I mean, from what I've seen, at least with my own parents, is it's very different when you shift from money coming in to money going out. It creates anxiety, it creates concern. And of course, like everybody has to do this terribly awkward calculation of how long do I think I'm going to live, and then base your plans around that terrible question, right?
Yeah.
So that's interesting. Yeah. How do you guys think, I mean, I know this is speculating deep into the future, but how do you think you'll be different from the best financial advisors now? Like, what are some of the things that you guys are thinking about to really differentiate and have a stronger offering, you know?
We don't want to be financial advisors, at least not in the way that most financial advisors exist today, to be clear. I think the simple version is people with assets who need a real financial advisor probably have them by the time they're in their 60s, and people who don't have one probably don't have the assets to need one as much. So it's less that, it's more that today we know exactly what you should spend on your healthcare because we know everything about your health insurance, but we don't know what you do spend because claims are so heavily delayed and often incorrect. So what we're excited about doing is helping people with the payments layer. So making sure that people don't overspend on any item, healthcare or otherwise. And it's not really financial advising. It's more product to save money and then over time to make money.
Yeah, yeah. Well, and there's a million ways to do it. My mother-in-law, for example, she's a whiz at navigating Medicare because she came out of the health industry, and she gets a ton of stuff paid for free through her plan. But a lot of other seniors don't. Like, for example, I don't think she pays for her gym membership. A lot of people don't know these things. And, you know, you stack a couple of those together, it starts to be a meaningful amount of savings. Yeah,
absolutely.
Got it. Cool. Thinking back on your whole journey, I'm curious which parts of Chapter were obvious to you at the very beginning, and what are some of the big things that you had to figure out along the way in terms of what you guys are building, why you're building it, how you partner? Like, which are the things where you look back and you're like, okay, this thing that I wrote in my notes before I founded is still true and still works, and this other thing like didn't pan out at all, but here's what we learned instead that's more interesting?
There's very little that was obvious, and I was probably wrong about a lot of things. I think the only obvious thing was that there are a lot of underserved seniors, and there are very few good companies building for this demographic. That was obvious then. That was obvious to me then. It is obvious to me now. It will continue to be true, I think, for a very long time. And that's kind of the only thing that matters. Yeah. Are you trying to solve important problems for people who don't have solutions to those problems? So at the very high level there, that was obvious. How we do it, what our Medicare offering looks like, I thought it would be much more online than phone-based early on. That turned out to be incorrect for a lot of reasons. I thought that we would, as I said, do more direct-to-consumer marketing and just a better product would win. Not strictly true. I also didn't think we'd be able to scale the business as quickly as we have been able to. I thought it would. I really had been bracing myself for a 10-year journey to get to where we probably were 2 years ago. So it's good because I care about the problem a lot and I like the mission, and it's more and more fun every day. But it was, I was very wrong about the speed.
Yeah. Interesting. I wonder, the phone versus digital experience thing, do you have sort of a date pegged in the future when you think will be the inflection point where that changes? Because the new seniors will be, digital first, not phone first.
So I actually don't think it's an age thing. This is what I've realized. It's a complexity and consequence of problem thing. If you were signing up for an ACA plan, maybe you do, I don't know. But if you sign up for an ACA plan, it's very complicated. Most people, you included, like people our age, wish that they had someone trustworthy to talk to help them explain how ACA works. I see. Yeah. I think age makes it harder, but it's not the only part of it. So I don't know that we'll be in an online first enrollment paradigm for quite some time, if ever. I think we will be in an automated paradigm using a combination of voice, AI, online, and some humans. But I don't think it'll be fully end-to-end online.
Yeah, there's almost like a class of problems where the consequence of getting it wrong is so wildly different. And the starting point of where my questions begin is so wildly different that you sort of only trust either a human or a human-like experience.
Yep.
I think of a recent email from my financial advisor where I was like, we got to talk about this. Like, we can't do this particular thing over email. I think that's a good product insight, right? That there are certain problems where you're just like, this is too important. We need to talk it over.
Yeah. And even if it could be done over a series of 100 back and forth emails, that's a much worse experience than getting on a 20-minute call.
Yeah. Yeah. Awesome. Well, this has been fabulously interesting. I feel much better educated. I hope the audience also feels much better educated about the fact that you guys exist and how to help seniors along the entire journey, not just Medicare. Where can people find you and Chapter after the episode?
Our website is askchapter.org. So you can go there, get help. If you ever need anything else, you can always email me or ping me on LinkedIn, Cobi@getchapter.com or Cobi-chapter.org, either way.
Awesome. Thanks so much. Take care.
Thanks.
Thank you so much for listening. Emergent is brought to you by First Principles, where we provide emerging technology product coaching and fractional product leadership to founders with bold visions. If you found this valuable, you can subscribe on Spotify, Apple, or wherever you get your podcasts. Please consider leaving a review or sharing feedback directly with us. You can always find previous episodes, show notes, and more content on www.emergentproduct.com.